Okay, we are open up to the next clean page in our math notebooks for today's notes. Today we are titling, oh that is crooked. We are titling our notes 9.4, divide whole numbers by fractions. Actually, I'm going to do this and then there we go. All right. Come on. I get it all lined up, but then when I have to put my book under here, it messes up. There we go. 9.4, divide whole numbers by fractions in today's date, which is 2/23/21. Now, I know that some of you might be a little worried about dividing fractions. Thank you for giving me a thumbs up when you're ready. Because division itself can be a little trickier. There's a lot of steps with it. I'm going to let you know dividing with fractions is going to be easier than you think it is. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Michael. And Jason and Senna and everyone else who's giving me a thumbs up. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Are we ready to move on to the steps? Okay. So we're going to get right into steps. Today we are practicing taking a whole number and dividing it by a fraction. Tomorrow we're going to do the opposite. We are going to take a fraction and divide it by a whole number. Then we'll practice dividing just fractions. So we're going to be going through the steps to solve this example problem, 5 divided by 1/6, for this practice problem. So 5 divided by 1/6. And we're going to go through the steps on how we do this. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So now you should be scooted into your own desk. Thanks. All right, are we ready for the first step? Okay, when we are dividing fractions and whole numbers, our first step, if we have a whole number, is always to convert the whole number into a fraction. That is always our first step. Now, if we had 2 fractions we were dividing, would we need to follow step 1? No. If there was not a whole number, you would just skip over step 1 and go to step 2. So we convert the whole number into a fraction and we rewrite our division problem with that whole number as a fraction. And remember, any whole number that's being turned into a fraction, we just put it over 1. The whole number becomes the numerator, 1 becomes the denominator. So then instead of 5 divided by 1/6, we have 5 over 1 divided by 1/6. Give me a thumbs up when you have this written down. Awesome. Awesome. Nice. Thank you. Awesome. So again, if we didn't have a whole number we were dividing here 5th grade, we would skip this step because there would be no whole number to convert. We would just skip it and we move right on to step 2. So step 2, you might think, well, Miss E, why do you have to say step 2? And I'll explain why after we go through all the steps. The second step is we keep the first fraction the way it is. So now that we've turned that whole number in this case into a fraction, we keep it the way it is. We don't do anything to it. We keep it. And again, you might be thinking, well, why do you have to say that? I'll explain why after we go through all the steps. We keep the first fraction the way it is. Thank you for giving me a thumbs up. Thank you for giving me a thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you. It's outside, honey. All right, are we ready for our third step? Yeah. Oh, I see a few people finishing up the second step. Go ahead and finish it up. So step 1, convert. If you have a whole number, you convert it to a fraction. Step 2, you keep the first fraction the way it is. Step 3, you change the division symbol to multiplication. You might be thinking, Miss E, you've just completely changed the problem. We're going to do another step that's going to make this work. So we keep the first fraction the way it is. We change the division symbol to multiplication. Awesome. 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 Nice work. Nice work. No, I'm showing that we did that in step 2. That's why I kept it green. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yep, and then the multiplication's blue to show us changing it. So then step 4, and this is why this works. Our fourth step then is to flip the second fraction so it's the reciprocal. So the reciprocal is like when we take 1/6 and we flip it into 6/1. That is called the reciprocal. Yes, Jack? I have a question on the converting one. Yes. When you take 5, do you always put the 1 underneath the 5? If it's a whole number, yes. Yes. And then if it's not a whole number, then you skip step 1. Okay. Yep. If there is not a whole number in your division problem, you skip step 1. Step 1 is only there if you have a whole number that needs to be converted into a fraction. Yes, Zoe? What if you have like a number that's like 2 2/4 divided by like, I don't know, like another number? We'll get into that, okay? Today, we're just doing whole numbers by fractions, okay? Yeah. So you can't see it, but the flip and the 6/1, they're purple. Thank you for letting me know that you are ready. So we flip the second fraction so it's the reciprocal. So instead of 1/6, we flip it so it's 6/1. Thank you. Awesome. Will, do you have a question? Is it fine if we definition of reciprocal? Reciprocal on the side? Yes, that's a great idea. How many of you had never heard the word reciprocal before? Okay, off to the side, you could right, the reciprocal is when we flip the numerator and denominator of a fraction. The reciprocal is when we flip the numerator and denominator of a fraction. Great idea, Will. Yes, it's important that you recognize, so if I ever write a word, especially in our math notes that you haven't seen before, and you want a definition for it to write down, let me know and I can give it to you. So the reciprocal is when we flip the numerator and denominator of a fraction. So we're switching them. We're flipping them around. Yep, so when you think of the word flip, you think of the reciprocal. We're finding the reciprocal of the fraction. Kind of like the opposite. Instead of 1/6, we have 6/1.
Can you say the definition again?
Yep, the reciprocal is when we flip the numerator and denominator of a fraction. So the reciprocal is when we flip the numerator and denominator of a fraction. So if you want to write that off to the side, that's a great idea. Thanks for bringing that up, Will. So the reciprocal is when we flip the numerator and the denominator of a fraction. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready. I know some of you are writing down the definition. Awesome. Awesome. Nice work. The reciprocal is when we flip the numerator and the denominator of a fraction. Michael, turn around, dude. All right. Are we ready? Okay. So then our final step is really 2. I call it step 5 and 6. We solve and simplify. So 5/1 times 6/1, we multiply just like we would with fractions. We multiply the 2 numerators together. 5 times 6 gets us 30. 1 times 1 equals 1, so we have 30/1. Well, that simplifies into the whole number 30. Awesome. Thank you for the thumbs up when you're ready. And I'm going to show you something a little silly that will help you remember the 3 of the main steps when we're done. What? Not yet.
Okay.
When we go on to the practice problems, then yes. So like I said, I'm going to show you something silly to help you remember it, Richie. So step 5/6, because we're solving and simplifying. 5/1 times 6/1 gets us 30/1, which can be simplified into 30. All right, are we ready to move on? Is there anyone who needs more time? Okay, so the kind of silly thing I wanted to show you. When it comes to dividing fractions, because we don't always have a whole number to convert, the main steps in dividing whole numbers by, or dividing fractions at all, is to keep, change, flip. So if we focus on the first letter of each of these, K, C, and F, we can think of KFC, but instead of KFC, think KCF. Keep, change, flip. If you want to write that down, you can. So instead of Kentucky Fried Chicken or instead of KFC, we write KCF for keep, change, flip. So if you want to write this down, you can. We keep the first fraction the way it is. We change the division symbol to a multiplication symbol, and we flip the second fraction so that it's reciprocal. The numerator is now the denominator is now the numerator. Is this something that might help some of you remember the order KCF a little bit? Maybe? Okay, good. Yep, keep, change, flip. Yep, and you just go left to right with that. Keep the first fraction the same. change the division symbol to multiplication, then flip the second fraction to where it's reciprocal. Nice. All right. Are we ready for some practice problems? Okay. Oh, I see some people. Practice problems. Okay. I see some people finishing up their notes. Yep. Yeah. I've used this in the past, and this is how I started off. Dividing fractions. Okay. Let's go back to our note page. Practice problems. So you are going to follow these steps for these problems. Let's label our practice section. Awesome. So I'm going to show you the problems. As soon as you get them written down, you can begin solving them following our 5/6 steps. Okay, here are our problems. The first one says 4 divided by 1/2. The second one is 2 divided by 1/3. The third one is 15 divided by 1/5. That's a 5 as the denominator. 15 divided by 1/5. Number 4 is 9 divided by 1/8. And then number 5, our last one, is 8 divided by 2/5. And remember, make sure you are simplifying when you are able to. So go ahead, start solving these when you have them written down. I'll know you're ready if I see you quietly waiting, reading, writing, or drawing, or working on like spelling homework or something. That works too. So, you can start solving them as soon as you get them written down. Make sure you're raising your hand if you have questions. he asked, Miss E, instead of writing out every single step for every problem, if I know how to write the whole number as a fraction, to change that division symbol to multiplication and just write the reciprocal right away, can I do that? Yes. I have you guys write out every single step so that you have those detailed steps in your notebook. When it comes to your homework, if you're able to identify this first one, it's going to be 4/1 times 2/1. You can just rewrite that and solve it. That is okay. Okay. I could use the first one 4 times 2. Yeah. So you guys know on tests you should be showing your work, but yeah, homework. And the only thing is, if you do it all in your head, you get it wrong on your homework, I can't help you fix it. That's the only thing. You're taking the risk. Voice is up. It is a work time. And that's how we practice recognizing it as a division problem. So we spent all yesterday talking about how fractions are like division problems, right? So what would you do about that? Give me another minute or so. I see some people finishing up the last 1 or 2 problems. Vengeance, if you get vengeance against someone, you're trying to do one wrong because they're wrong to you. Mm-hmm. Ready to rock? All right, if you have a book out, put it away, please. We are going to look at these together. How many of you are feeling so far that dividing fractions is a little easier than you thought it was going to be? Okay. Do you remember when I told you guys that multiplying and dividing fractions was easier than adding and subtracting them?
Yeah.
Would you say that's pretty true?
Yeah.
Okay. I know some parts of multiplying fractions can get a little time consuming with simplifying, but dividing them is one of my favorites. Okay. Let's take a look at number 1. So, first of all, for number 1, we have a whole number, so we need to convert it to a fraction. So that means as a fraction, 4 is the same as 4/1. Would you guys agree? Okay. So I know for my steps 2, 3, and 4, keep, change, flip. So I keep the first fraction the same. Then I change my division symbol to a multiplication symbol. And then I need to flip the numerator and the denominator to find the reciprocal of the second fraction. So that would be 2/1. So when I multiply these, I get 8 over 1, which is the same as what, 5th grade? 8. Give me a thumbs up if you got 8 as the answer for number 1. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so then number 2, we're doing the same thing. I have a whole number. So I need to convert the whole number to a fraction. The whole number 2 is the same as the fraction 2 over 1. So now I change, flip. So I keep the first fraction, which is now 2 over 1. I change my division symbol to multiplication. I flip my second fraction to find the reciprocal. So instead of 1 over 3, I have 3 over 1. When I multiply them together, I multiply the two numerators. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. And 6 over 1 is the same as what, 5th grade? 6. Give me a thumbs up if you got 6 as your answer for number 2. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, then number 3. Again, I have a whole number, so I need to convert it to a fraction. So 15 as a fraction is the same as 15 over 1. Voices should be off right now. I keep the first fraction. I change the division symbol into multiplication. Then I need to flip my second fraction to find its reciprocal. So instead of 1 over 5, I have 5 over 1. And when I multiply, what is 15 times 5, 5th grade?
75.
It is 75. You went one more. 75. Yep, 75. And 1 times 1 is 1. So that is the same as what, 5th grade? 75. How many of you got 75 as your answer for number 3? That's okay. You just went one more. Awesome. Last 2. So then we have number 4. So number 4, I have a whole number that needs to be converted into a fraction. So 9 is the same as 9 over 1. So I keep the first fraction. I change the division sign to multiplication. I flip my second fraction to find its reciprocal. So instead of 1 over 8, I have 8 over 1. So then when I multiply 72 over 1, which is the same as, raise your hand if you got 72 as your answer for number 4. Nice work. And then finally number 5. Now this one was a little different because unlike the other ones, I didn't start with a fraction with 1 as my numerator. So for number 8, for number 5, I have the whole number 8 that needs to be converted into a fraction. So 8 is the same as 8 over 1. I keep my first fraction the same. I change the division symbol to multiplication. Then I flip my second fraction to find so that it's the reciprocal. So instead of 2 over 5, I have 5 over 2. So then when I do this, I multiply my numerators. So 8 times 5 is 40. Then I have 1 times 2, which is 2. Can I simplify this? Yes. Now, 5th grade, this is why we started off, Grayson and Michael, we started off yesterday by practicing recognizing fractions as division problems. That line here in my fraction is the same as what? The division symbol. So 40 seconds or 40 over 2, that's the same as 40 divided by 2. So when I take 40 and divide it by 2, does 2 go in equally? Yes. How many times, Mackenzie? 20. How many of you got 20 as your answer for number 5? All right. How many of you got 40 over 2? You got to that step. Awesome. Yep, you just got to simplify. Yeah, basically, because it's in halves. 40 halves is the same as 20. Nice. Will.
I know this isn't for reason, but like 9 divided by 1/8, you could just see how much times 1/8 goes into 8, and then you can just times it by 1.
That's exactly why the reciprocal works. Will. I'm glad you brought that up. So if you're wondering why this method works, is because if we use number 4 as an example like Will did, we're taking 1/8. So 1 out of 8 pieces. And we want to know how many times does that 1/8 piece go into 9? Well, we first need to know how many 1/8 pieces does it take to get to the whole. Well, if there's only, it's a 1/8 piece, it would take 8 pieces to make 1 whole. So then to make 9 wholes, we would take 8 times 9 to get 72. That is why this process works. So, Will, I'm glad you asked that question. Yes, Jack. We will have a math review game. We will have a math review game. In 5th grade, I will say this is the process we are going to be using for all of our division with fractions. Sometimes our whole number, we might not be taking a whole number and dividing it by a fraction. Maybe we're dividing a fraction by a whole number, but we will be practicing these same steps. Whenever there's a whole number, we always convert it. Then we keep the first fraction in the problem the same. We change the division symbol to multiplication, and then we flip the second fraction so it's the reciprocal before we solve and simplify. All right, 1 through 5, how are you feeling about this skill? 1 through 5, how are you feeling about this skill? I want everyone to show me. Michael and Emmy, how are you feeling about this skill? Okay. In your workbooks, please open up to page 549. 549.
Bag your lunch.
No. I have my lunch in my fridge.
Oh, you have a fridge?
Yeah.
Where?
All right, we are on page 549. All right, you should be. Why are we talking? Now, make sure you do the ones I circle. However, if you want to do more, you definitely can. For sure, you need to do number 1, number 2, numbers 6 through 9. So that's 6, 7, 8, and 9. Number 15. Number 15. And number 17. I will say that one more time. Number 1, number 2, number 6 through 9. So that's 6, 7, 8, and 9. Number 15 and number 17. If you want to do more than that, you certainly can, but you at least need to do those. Zoe, did you have a question about one of the ones to circle? 1, 2, 6 through 9, 15, and 17. Yeah. So 5th grade, for number 1 and 2, they ask you to use the picture to find each quotient. You can if you want, or if you just want to stick to our steps, you can do that as well. So you can decide how you solve it.